Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. We are back here with Marsha Vanwynsberghe to talk. Well, you know what? Not sure where the conversation is going to go, but she's an amazing woman, author, speaker, coach, you name it. Life adversity coach, many titles and hats to her name, mom as well. Say hello, please, and you can introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Jill. I'm thrilled to be here again. My name is Marsha Vanwynsberghe, and I am a storytelling business coach, life adversity coach, dealing with all things stories and how to learn how to pull those lessons out and overcome our stories. So there's so many things, of course, always every week I love to talk about, but I just thought I would start with that.
Good. And what is the area of focus for today? I don't see any specific notes. Sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't. You got them in your head. Go ahead.
I've got them here and I've got them here. So it's all good. One of the questions that has come up over the past few days, and it really helps me to reflect, is at this time, there's so many people starting businesses and building businesses from scratch. And it becomes a case of so many people saying, okay, but what's the strategy? What do I do next? What do I invest here? Do I start this? Do I do all these things? And I really believe 100% that we go first. So we have to go first. And that is in our business and in our life. So that means that if we are building a business on our own, that our business is an extension of us. So we have to really tune into what do we need, what is missing, how do we show up best, how do we take care of ourselves? And this is going to sound like some wishy-washy stuff, but I think it's really important. The self-care that we need, listening to what our boundaries need to be, what does our business need? What do we need right now? Do we need to give more to ourselves in order to show up more effectively? Because we all know we can spin our wheels in business for 10 hours a day, but if we're kind of half into it and not really full and our best self, then it will show. So that was one of the things that has come up, especially recently, is really how do we go first in our own lives and in our business so that our clients and the people that we are working with can get like the best of us
out of you. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So the best out of us. And I think that comes from us really doing that inner work and inner deep dive first. So when that comes to it, what does that mean? When we tie that back into our stories, I like to talk about, I think we talked about it once, but I want to touch on it again, is what our default is. And what our default that we go back to is the 4 blocks that we have in showing up in our life and in owning our stories. So those blocks that I have found have been people pleaser, hider, victim, and perfectionist or fighter. So we have to recognize how we have handled all of the things in our life, because we have patterns, we all do. And there's nothing wrong with the patterns. I think that the misconception is that there's something wrong with us or that we're not doing it the right way. It's not that. I think we have to recognize that that's our old pattern of how we do things. And as humans, as I'm going to say, especially women, moms, we're in this space of we just want to get it right. We want to get it right. We don't want to screw it up. We want to do it one way. But we tend to go with our old way of doing things.
Yep.
And there has to come a time where we break the pattern and recognize that maybe we can do things a different way. Maybe we actually can change how we do our life and our business. And that can open up so many other doors. So that was just where I wanted to take the conversation today.
Great. I cannot wait, because as a mom, I get it. And out of those 4, we've talked about this a little before, but I am that perfectionist fighter and it gets tiring. I mean, everyone has their own issues, each category, but everything's got to be for everything. And it's just not. And then the anxiety, the stress when it doesn't go the way, and then the house is a mess and everything's like, it's just boils and boils. I would love to learn to calm down and let that all go to make me a better person, to make me feel better. There's always this angst in my stomach. Like, I didn't get to do this before I left for work. I didn't get to do this. And then how am I going to have time to do it's? Yeah.
You know what?
And then I got to do it all myself. I got to, no, you can't. Oh, no. Because then I come home and it's more work. Well, if you're going to do dinner for the kids, now there's dishes in the sink, there's sauce on the floor. I'm like, got to do it myself. So how do you let go of that?
Okay. So First off, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that, because there's so many people who can relate to you right now. And that's the whole point about our stories, I believe, is being open and vulnerable with who we are, because then other people can connect with you and relate. So that was me 100% when my kids were little. That was me. I was like juggling everything and happily married, but my husband traveled and was gone for sometimes weeks at a time. So it was me, like there was no backup. So I know what that was like, in a sense of having to really carry it all on your own. So when those patterns happen, and listen, we all live those patterns every day, no matter what they are. If you're a people pleaser, you're the person who's always saying yes to the things that you really you don't want to do, but you don't want to let anyone else down. And the thing is every relationship we have in our life is an extension of the one that we have with ourselves. So knowing ourselves more, diving into that more, recognizing our patterns is really important. Mm-hmm. When we get into certain positions, situations, circumstances, people, that we fall back into our default. And I can so relate to you, because I am definitely the fighter perfectionist. That's how I knew how to name these ones, because I was all of them.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All of them? I didn't know we could be all. Okay.
Yeah, at many points in my life, and I can touch on that, I was in all of those categories. And the thing is that when I was there, I found myself in a space of, and even now, when I get pushed a little bit, my deadlines are high, I go into fine, I'll just do it myself. I'll just do it all myself. You have to interrupt the patterns in order to change the story. And when you interrupt the patterns, it's not interrupting it with degrading ourselves, putting ourselves down, being hard on ourselves. It's finding a way to recognize that this pattern is something that I've done all the time. It's a part of me, but it's not the only thing that I can do. So when I find myself pushed there, I step back and I purposely reach out and ask for help. I get into that's uncomfortable for me. And some people will think that seems silly, but it is uncomfortable for me to reach out and ask for help. But the more we do that and we interrupt that pattern, the more we allow others to help us, the more we actually start to change the story, that we don't have to do it ourselves. The more, here comes a little bit psychology, the more we actually change the worthiness piece of the story, that we don't have to do it all by ourselves. We allow others to support us. We allow others to help us on the journey. I think we even become more, and we are able to take on more, do more, and be present in the moment. It's one of the hardest things for women and for moms to be present in our lives, because especially when we're juggling 10,000 moving pieces at the same time, it's hard to be present. And if we can't be present, we're missing out on those current moments, the gratitude, the times that are there that, people say they go by so fast, but you don't think it at the time, but they really do. They do go by so fast, you just don't realize it. And all of those things, what does that have to do with storytelling? All of those things help you to really change your story. There's nothing wrong with any of our stories. The whole fact is that we spend so much of our life avoiding them, pushing them away, hiding them, whether they're shame stories, we don't talk about them. And we're literally avoiding these big parts of ourselves. They're huge parts of ourselves. Yeah. And we're shaming them. And the more we shame them, the more we keep them quiet, the more we isolate ourselves, the more we don't have the connections with other people. And it really just makes our world really super small.
Mm-hmm. Sure does.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So help people like me, listeners out there. You've helped yourself clearly. How did you get through it? Who helped you?
And you know what? It's a lot of self-reflection, and deciding to make change. So when many years ago, I was a parent dealing with teen substance abuse, I was ashamed, in a sense, not ashamed of my kids. I think this is really important. I was ashamed and angry with myself because I felt like I had failed. Somewhere along the way, I made the title of a mom to mean that my kids would turn out a certain way. And if they didn't, then I'd failed.
It's on you. Yep.
Yep. And no one did that. That was me. That's 100% me. I did that. Maybe some of society, but I literally did that myself. And so I spent a lot of time hiding. I spent a lot of time in shame. I spent time being a victim because I felt like I was a victim of my circumstances. I was in a lot of blame, a lot of negative emotions. And the fighter in me came out full force, perfectionist, that I'm just going to figure this out by myself. So I spent a lot of time in all of those areas. But my story, when I lived in those spaces, my story kept me stuck. And in a moment in time, it's almost like stuck in a moment of time while everything else was still moving and happening, but I wasn't participating in anything. That's what I call being stuck in your story. And when you're stuck in your story, you're replaying scenarios over and over. You're not actively looking for change. You're not, also, I say this with love, you're not taking ownership for the things that you can change because you're putting all of your energy into the things that you can't change. And it just kept me stuck in that cycle. So I literally had to come to that breaking point. And it was a breaking point where everybody told me you're going to have to learn how to surrender. And if you're a fighter or perfectionist, surrender is just not the word that vibes with because it just doesn't. And so I'm giving you permission, if you're listening, that's okay if it doesn't, because surrender to me felt like quitting. And I don't quit. Like strong people don't quit. That's how my brain was wired.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn. I think that surrender, you learn surrender when there's nothing else left to do. Like nothing else is left to do. There's no other options. It is the only option that's left. And when surrender came into place, it was like, okay, everything I am trying to do to change our circumstances is not working. And it had to be a really big breaking point where I don't think I've shared this yet, but we almost lost both of our boys in a matter of a couple of days.
Oh gosh.
That was not something you can prepare for. And when that happened, I knew something had to change because my way wasn't working. I didn't know the answer. And I think that's what has to happen in all of our lives is we don't know the answer, but we have to come face to face with the fact that our method is not working. And so what can we do to create change there? And when I did that, I dove into a ton of personal work, a lot of counseling, a lot of support. And the words that worked for me, everybody's going to have different words, but the words that worked for me were ownership, choices, like radical responsibility. I'm just going to take full responsibility for myself. I am not going to take responsibility for anyone else. And that sounds very selfish when you're a mom who has literally spent her whole life taking care of everyone else. And it's hard, right? It feels really selfish. But all of a sudden I started to recognize, like, where do I feel joy? Where can I feel gratitude? Where can I be present? What do I need right now? Who do I need to surround myself with? How can I connect with other people? My world was completely isolated, not 100% completely isolated. And if you've ever heard Brene Brown talk about the armor, we carry armor to protect us from pain, which is not possible, but we do that as humans because we don't want to feel pain. We want to protect ourselves from judgment of others and all those things. So I carry that armor all the time. I'm like, I'm strong, I can do this myself. But the problem is when you carry armor for a long time, you isolate yourself so much so that no one can get through, and you can never selectively block emotions. So you're blocking pain and you're blocking joy and you're blocking good and you're blocking bad. And all of a sudden I realized that, oh my God, I couldn't even tell you where I have joy in my life. Like there was none. So I had to learn how to put the armor down. That requires you to be vulnerable, requires you to build some courage, start, because what else do I have to lose at this point? And I started with some baby steps, pouring into myself, self-care, boundaries in place. And every time I had doubts, I'm like, okay, what's my choice? What am I going to own? What do I own and take responsibility for right now? And I created those mantras over and over. Never in a million years did I expect it was going to lead into a business. I was just trying to survive. Honestly, I was just trying to live. And then with repeated actions every day, multiple hundred times a day, I started to feel stronger. I started to feel like, okay, this is, I feel like I've got some footing and some grounding. And then it became a space of starting to share my story and wanting to be able to help others. And as I learned that I wasn't the only one who was struggling with this, which we all know is not true because lots of people are struggling right now, that these lessons could help other people. And then all of a sudden it started to open up other doors. So if you're listening to this, it's okay if in the beginning you're really just trying to find a way to survive. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Got it. And here you are today helping so many others, the types of people that can benefit from you and your work. Do you want to mention maybe there's going through ABC? Do you want to discuss any types of specific clients, without using your name, things that you can
Yeah.
help people overcome and change in their lives?
Absolutely. I do tend to attract a lot of women who are working through unbelievable difficult stories. Like some of the stories it's a loss, it's a partner loss, it's a loss of a child.
Mm-hmm.
It is sometimes it's substance abuse, sometimes it's physical abuse. And they feel deep down that they know that their life is meant for something more. They know that they feel they are here to make an impact or make a difference. They feel like this is happening for me for a reason and I can do something good with this, and it helps them. So the other thing is some of them just really want to learn how to heal. I just want to learn how to heal. And as we start to go through and how to heal, then we dive into all of the other things that they could do with this message, that they could do. When years ago, when somebody said to me, I said, have you been searching on Google for answers? I said, I've been looking everywhere and I cannot find answers. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. And my counselor at the time said, maybe that's because you're supposed to. So a lot of my clients who come in, they have spent extensive time searching for answers and solutions and have not found any of them. And they feel deep down, maybe they are meant to be a source of solution, support, help for other people. So, they can take their pain and turn it into a purpose, a mission, and helping other people.
Pain into gain.
It's pain to gain. And I'm telling you right now, I think that is even more necessary. I think it's needed and necessary because I think that there's so many people who are holding on to difficult stories, and by holding on to that difficult story, you are letting it become your identity. You're letting that struggle become your identity. And it doesn't have to be. It actually doesn't have to be. Part of what my superpower is helping people to reframe that story differently and understand that the dots that you have had in your past have connected to bring you here. Like you actually were the person to be going through this challenge, to be able to come to the other side of it. And I think that when you get to the other side of a challenge, the best thing to do is turn around and pay that forward to come back. I just think it's the best thing to do if you feel that you are called to be that person.
Got it, like you did.
Mm-hmm.
So now, by the way, where do we get in touch with you so our listeners know?
Yeah. Best places, marshavanw.com is my website. And then on Apple, Spotify, all the podcast platforms, my podcast is called Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. And our second podcast is Everybody Holds a Story. We are talking about all things stories, podcasting, like what we can do to overcome the challenges that we're all living through right now. And these are real life stories. So they're just so powerful. And my books are available on Amazon. If you search my name, my book is actually coming up on its 4-year anniversary, my first book. And it's called When She Stopped Asking Why. And it's a really, really important title because when I learned to stop asking why was when my life changed. I had to stop asking why and be in that victim mindset. And I had to let go of that in order to continue to move forward. So that's where my book is. And anywhere on social media, you can reach me at Marsha Van, so as soon as you start typing Marsha Van W, it'll pop up and you can send me a DM on social media anywhere.
Good. Thank you so much. So we still have some time left, obviously, in the show to talk. What else did you have in mind for us, Marsha?
Well, I think if you were listening to any of the early parts where we talked about the fighter, the perfectionist, the victim, or the hider, and you're wondering which one you are, then I invite you to go to it's Marsha Van W /story blocks. And that's my quiz. It's a very simple quiz that you can go through, and it will help to highlight what your dominant block is. And as you go through that dominant block, what it also does is I have tapping techniques. So EFT tapping techniques, which is all NLP. I did my NLP certification last year, and it is incredibly powerful work to help you to shift that block for you so that you can look at things differently. So that's also available.
Got it. Thank you so much. And by the way, your books or your own personal story and journey, could you just share with some new people today about what you went through You mentioned with your children, right?
Yes, I did. Back when I decided to write my story as a book, I wish I could say everybody was incredibly encouraging, and that is not the case. At the time, most people thought it was absolutely crazy that I would even consider sharing a personal story in a book. But I knew my intention was that it would help people who had never walked in my shoes. That's all I wanted. I wanted to put something good back out. And in my book, I actually credit my kids for making me the person that I am today. When you have come through a really difficult story and circumstance, it's so healing to come to a space of forgiveness, of, loving everyone for who they are. And it just also means that I let go and was able to forgive them, but also just be in a space of love them who they are. And I didn't know it then, but I will say that has been probably the number one thing that started all of us rebuilding relationships. They're incredible grown men now. They know exactly what I do, what I talk about, and it's so funny when your kids are little, you have all these expectations of what you want for them, but as they get older, happy, healthy, and we're good. If they are doing something they love and they're happy and they're healthy, then I just love it. So I credit a lot of this journey to them.
Got it. That's beautifully said. And in trying to help people all across the world, I mean, do you have a certain area that anyone virtually at this point, right?
Mm-hmm. It is virtually. We've done lots of live events in the past. We haven't come back to them yet. But right now I have this collection of women that we are working with in one-on-one coaching, group coaching, masterminds, where it is helping them to connect, collaborate, work with each other to get their message out there and build their business. And as they do that, I mean, it's amazing to be able to see that you can take your difficult circumstances and actually build a business supporting others and be in that space. It's incredibly rewarding. And it just feels like there was a purpose behind everything that you went through. And as we do that, I'm watching them. Some are starting podcasts, some are writing in books, some are writing their own books, collaborative books, and building coaching businesses. And it's just a ripple effect that I am so grateful, to tie it back to the beginning, that I chose to go first without having a clue what it was going to look like. And now I look at it and go, this was obviously part of the plan all along. Like, this was part of what had to happen in order to kind of push me into this space. And I'm so grateful for it.
Got it. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here always. And to let everyone know that you are available. Initial phone call, they can reach out to you. Is there a consultation fee for the first initial call? There's just a talk session, 15 minutes. What is it?
Yeah, it's about 15 minutes, and there's a Calendly link on my site in order for people to connect, or sending a message through social media. Or the next thing I would invite people to do is to do the Story Blocks quiz, because it puts you into, my regular emails that are going to come out that are there to support you. But it also helps you to identify, like, where do you start? What are some of the things that you can start with? Because when you do the quiz, you will immediately get a video response back with your answers. And I have received so many messages from people saying, I feel like you called me out in those, and that's good, because that's where we have to start. Yeah. And so that's a great place to start, to give you an idea. So you can do this and overcome and change your story. And you can do it just to heal yourself. You can do it to support others. You can build a business. You can literally do whatever you want with it. But those lessons have happened to you for a reason. Please, and your gifts are wrapped up in all of those lessons. Please don't waste them. Please don't waste them. They're yours. I can't use your gifts. You can't use my gifts. Please don't leave them untapped, because I always say someone somewhere is praying for the solutions you're holding on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the positive inspiration and advice. And for the rest of the week, in closing, what do you want to leave us with, Marsha?
Just know that you are stronger than you think. You 100% are exactly where you need to be. Mm-hmm. Look at the lessons that are coming your way and ask yourself, like, what if I knew I could do whatever I wanted, what would I do with that? And that inner voice is going to tell you the direction to go. It's your job to take the next step. Got it. Thank you so much, Ms. Marsha, marshavanw.com. Have a great day. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Hopefully next week.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.